According to my dictionary, gratitude is the readiness to show appreciation and to return it with kindness. There are several ways to shorten up a sermon. One is for Sam to have done it so well before I start. Thank you, Sam. I should say something, I guess, about India. You would expect that. India is still struggling with COVID, just like we are. It seems to be up and down. I Zoom regularly with people over there and continue to be thrilled with the opportunity to go around the world without booking a ticket and visit people's homes. Oftentimes they are sitting at their table. Some of them are sitting on their beds and just feel like it's intruding, just walking into people's houses all over the country of India, Myanmar, and Nepal. Of course, at the moment, I have no definite plans to visit there again. Maybe I've done my share of visiting and traveling around the globe. Our daughter-in-law, Tim and Tara has invited us to Thanksgiving supper tomorrow. We got a note from her a couple of days ago. She said, I think you might want to boycott the supper because I don't have any turkey. So Google always helps out in situations like that. But Ellen said, now what am I going to do? She's having ham instead of turkey. And I was planning to mash the potatoes. And that doesn't go with ham. So Google says, while the actual Thanksgiving holiday is on a Monday, Canadians gather for their Thanksgiving feast on any day during the long weekend. However, Sunday is considered the most common. Foods traditionally served at Thanksgiving include roasted turkey, roast beef, ham, stuffing, mashed potatoes with gravy, sweet potatoes, and so on. So both Ellen and Tara are in good shape. They are in sync as far as the flexibility of Thanksgiving lunch tomorrow. Of all the holidays that we have on our calendar, it seems to me that Thanksgiving may be one of the purest. We were in Southland Mall yesterday, and I didn't see any advertisements about things, especially for Thanksgiving. It would seem perhaps just improper, whereas all of the, maybe all is the right word, many of the rest of our holidays have been taken over by commerce and wild parties that go with holidays. We love holidays. I noticed that there was an advertisement yesterday in one of the stores for Diwali, which is a Hindu festival, Indian festival of lights. But at Thanksgiving, it seems to have been reserved for a family thing, and how appropriate that is. And I hope that you are having a good family thing. I think in Canada we're ahead of our neighbors to the south because Thanksgiving south of the border is the fourth Thursday of November. We're already a month ahead of them, which is a nice thing to be. And they have coupled that up with Black Friday, whereas when we have Thanksgiving on Monday, we're likely not rushing off to the store for bargains tomorrow. So I think that we are blessed in that regard. As Sam has already said, Thanksgiving feasts and celebrations go back in history a long time. Lots of times there were Thanksgiving days set apart at the end of a war or at the end of a long voyage. Time to be grateful. For us as believers, it's very much a part of us. In the Old Testament, it's over and over again. Give thanks to the Lord, for his love endures forever. The prophets and the poets like that line over and over again. Give thanks to the Lord. And when Paul wrote letters, as Sam has already referred to, the letter to the Thessalonians, Paul starts out by thanking them for their love, their faith, hope, and love. And he does the same in other letters that he wrote. Starting to be thankful for people. My children gave me a gift. I think it's a gift. Sometimes gifts are more like assignments, and that's what this was. Maybe you have heard of Storyworth. So every Monday morning, the email comes, Ray, you need to answer this question. What was your mother like? What was your most sad event in your life, and so on? I found it's more like more like the assignment in English class I used to get to write essays, but I struggle along with it. But one of the questions was, where in the world would you like to visit again? And they're expecting me to say somewhere in India, I think. But I don't go to places to visit places. I am not a very good tourist. I go to places because there are people in Gravelburg at the end of the road. If there are no people at the end of the road, the places are not so inviting. People, relationships that we are all so grateful for. But gratitude is, as Sam has suggested, it's not just a byproduct. It is the product. Ephesians chapter 5, it says in verse 18, he said, don't be drunk with wine because that leads you nowhere, but be filled with the Spirit. And if you're filled with the Spirit, you speak to one another. Psalms, hymns, spiritual songs, if you know how to sing. And you give thanks in all circumstances to the Father for everything. Rather an inclusive statement. The identification of a spiritual person is not how queer they are, but how thankful they are. It is, I believe, not possible to be spiritual without being thankful or have a heart of gratitude. It's interesting in the life of Jesus where thankfulness took preeminence. On the road to Emmaus that night when the two fellows were traveling and Jesus appeared unknowingly to them, it was only when he took bread and gave thanks that they recognized who he was. They likely reflected back very quickly when Jesus fed the 5,000 and he gave thanks, and the 4,000 and he gave thanks. Or they might have flashed back to just a few hours ago when he took the bread and he says, "This is my body," and he gave thanks. A couple of years ago, and this had to be a couple of years ago because COVID has blanked out a whole year and some of my life. I can't calculate the calendar anymore. And Ellen and I were returning from Calgary and stopped in Medicine Hat, as we like to do, to have snack, and we went to Wendy's. And we ordered some things and sat down. And after we sat down, a man by the name of Darrell Weir came rushing over from the other side of the restaurant. And he said, "You're Ray McMillan." Yeah, but who are you? He said, "My wife and I were sitting over there, and when you and Ellen came in, we thought, we know them. Well, I'm sure we know them." And he said, "If it's the McMillans, we'll wait and see whether they give thanks before they eat." I was so glad we did. Jesus was known in the giving of thanks, an identification mark. As Sam has mentioned, it's not only an identification mark, it's an imperative. Paul says to the Colossians, this little sentence, "and be thankful," and be thankful. No option for those who are followers of Jesus Christ. He referred to Psalm 100, a neat little psalm. Verse 4, I think, is significant, and he's already pointed that out. In India, there are many castles. There are many places where kings and emperors have lived. And most of these places that the kings built, there is the outer court and the inner court. And it's sort of maybe like this place, except the outer court would be a lot bigger than the inner court. And the king would sit upon the throne in the inner court with all of his officials and so on. And if you wanted to go and visit the king, you would come and wait in the outer court until the accessor, the person at the door, the Walmart greeter, would allow you to come in and speak to the king. And it's, I think, a significant sequence in verse 4. You enter his gates, his outer door, with thanksgiving. And you enter his courts with praise. With praise. Praise and worship are not equal words. Praise is words that we say or sing. And nowadays, oftentimes, praise is excluded or limited to singing. but we praise people when we say good things about them. So you come to the outer court, and if you hate the king and you wish he were dead, you don't go into the inner court and praise him, because praise has to be preceded by thanksgiving. It comes out of the thanksgiving attitude, or Sam has used the word mindset. Thanksgiving and praise. It works for us too. If I don't like you, I don't appreciate you, I'm not going to go around saying nice things about you. Instead, I'd use the method of gossip instead. Praise, likely the opposite of gossip. Last Monday, after several months of doctoring, as Sam has mentioned, my brother Glenn went to the oncologist at the Blair Clinic in Regina. Some of you know that place well. And we sat there, and the oncologist, Dr. Hagel, came in. And she was fairly kind, fairly considerate, but she went right to business. She said, "This is stage 4 cancer. It cannot be cured, but we can treat it." And then she gave the 2 options. One would be appearing weekly for chemo through intravenous. The other is 2 pills that you'll have to take. And I have the names of the pills, but I still can't say them. And then she said, "You need to know the adverse side effects." And there are many. But then when I thought about gratitude, I thought, there are no adverse side effects. There are simply a lot of gentle side effects to the word gratitude. Because when thanksgiving is in one's heart, there isn't room for a lot of other things. If there is gratitude, generosity prevails, and hoarding and collecting. And we're reminded of Jesus saying, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasure on earth, where moth and rust consume." But if gratitude is present, generosity is a side effect. You can think of other side effects. Thanksgiving fosters humility rather than arrogance. It breeds optimism instead of sarcasm and pessimism and cynicism. Thankfulness. It yields acceptance rather than judgment. It blends in with contentment rather than greed. Paul said, I know how to survive and be content with lots or with little. I'm not there yet. But I think thankfulness lends us that way. Thankfulness helps us to be submissive to one another rather than rebellious. And I think my thinking is this year that for us Canadians, gratitude and thanksgiving is so important. It seems that we have become such a cranky lot, and going through another election period hasn't helped that very much. I'll go in the politics end of it. I'm just fairly ashamed of what things happen in Ottawa. Not as far as I'm concerned, but how the behavior of the people that want to represent you and me. Thankfulness would make such a difference rather than aggressiveness and accusing and blaming. Seems like the default for us when we get into crisis is blame, rather than finding what we can be thankful for. 1972 in India, where we lived in the city of Shillong and that area, they were striving for statehood. That's what's happened to India over and over again. Every little part wants to be its own state. Fortunately, we don't have that in Canada. No, maybe that's a little sarcasm too. But the central government offered sort of partial statehood. Lots of people were upset. No, we want it all. But the leader of the People's Party then said, well, it's better to have half a loaf if you can't have the whole loaf. And that's true when we look at a glass of water. We can see it as either half full or half empty. Or we can look at a rose bush and be provoked that it has thorns, or we can be happy that the thorns have roses. It's that attitude thing again. We are thankful to God, and Sam has led us that direction very nicely. But we are also very indebted and thankful to other people. We sit here in this nice facility. Some of you had a part in paying for this place and even building it. Most of us, though, we rest in the blessings of those who have gone before. You have songbooks that none of us have composed the songs in. We have Bibles that none of us translated. When I was first in India, being from farmer background, I did my own carpenter work in India, not so good, but I remember being really gruntled one day with the nails in India, because the nails don't have the point of the nails right in the middle. Now, those of you that do a little carpenter work, you know where the nail goes if the point isn't in the middle of the nail. So I was grumbling about this, and a fellow said to me, "It's okay. How would you like to start making your own nails?" And some of us are old enough to remember the nails that weren't round, they were square. Lane, I'll bet you never had to make a house with those kind. But so many things, we are standing on the shoulders of people who have gone before. We didn't make ourselves. We have so many people that have made us what we are and what we enjoy, let alone God himself. Others have labored, Jesus said, and you have entered into their labor. We farmers plant seeds, but we don't know how to make the seed grow, do we? We go to sleep and God provides the rain. And this year, Brian says he needs to do a better job this year. But overall, God has done very well in that regard. Attitude and gratitude. Last year, my sister, I have an older sister and 3 younger brothers. Glenn's the next one to me and in the line. My parents always said we have a handful of kids, and they are a handful. But last year, she is in a home, extended care home in Kipling. I went to a birthday party for a fellow by the name of Harold. He was celebrating his 90th birthday, and he was really not very well. I said, Harold, how are you? He said, I woke up this morning and my eyes opened and I saw I am doing fine. Tiffany's grandfather is in the hospital, and I have used him as an example over and over. He's been through so much. He actually should have been gone years ago, but he's still with us, and that's wonderful. But he said to me one time, he said, Ray, with my game leg and my old age, I still like to find my way. When I get up in the morning, I go to the door and I throw it open. And I say, thank you, God, one more day. Gratitude, the attitude of gratitude. So, with the Apostle Paul, I simply say, and be thankful. And I am thankful to be here. I wrote that on the card for next time.